or looked at. So no, I have no opinion on it whatsoever. I mean, who knows?
Do you have any reason to believe the information in the reports here is inaccurate?
I don't have enough of a context to even state an opinion. It doesn't even say what kind of users or anything.
Do you have any understanding whatsoever as to approximately what percentage of IE users have obtained IE through the OEM channel?
The only data point I know along these lines is I'm pretty sure I've seen that about 60 to 70% of people, the browser they're using, they got through the internet. That is, that's the way they got the browser they're working with.
Move to strike the answer as non-responsive. Can you read the question back, please?
It's just a way to cut through the line of questioning, which is not really going anyplace, and he's telling you what the data point is, that the only data point he has in this general subject area. So it's just a question of efficiency.
Do you have any understanding whatsoever as to approximately what percentage of IE users have obtained IE through the OEM channel?
Well, I guess I need to explain then how it works. If you take 100% and you take the one number that I say I know, which is 60 to 70%, get it through the internet, it at least places an upper bound on the number you asked for. And that's all I would know about that statistic.
Move to strike that answer as well. What information, let's strike that. Can you identify any specific documents you've seen that indicate how IE users obtain IE?
No.
Have you seen any documents like that at Microsoft, prepared by Microsoft employees?
I believe I have, yes.
Do you know who prepared them?
No.
Want to take a break here?
Sure. Okay.
Time is 10:16. We are going off the record.
Back on the record.
The time is 10:31. We are going back on the record.
Was Netscape the first company to market a web browser that gained widespread consumer usage?
I think Mosaic was the first browser. I don't know what your criteria you're applying in terms of widespread. Mosaic was the first popular browser, and that predates the existence of Netscape or their browser.
Did Netscape's browser supplant the Mosaic browser as the most popular one?
There's a point in time where Netscape browser became more popular in terms of usage share than Mosaic.
Recall when that was?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall when that was?
No. I don't think anybody knows exactly when that was.
I'd like to mark as Exhibit 340, 341, excuse me, I'd like to mark as Exhibit 341 series of emails. The first one being from Pat Ferrell, F-E-R-R-E-L, to Bill Gates and others, dated April 6, 1995. Oh, that's mine.
Oh, that's true.
hand you Exhibit 341, Mr. Gates, and this is a series of emails, and the one I want to ask you about is the one on the second page from Mr. Siegelman to yourself and others, dated April 6, 1995. I'm going to take a minute and take a look at it. Have you finished reviewing the email?
I looked at it.
The email starts off as follows, quote, Pat Farrell and I have been thinking about this problem a lot and watching Netscape very, very closely. I, too, am very worried. What position did Mr. Farrell hold at Microsoft about April of 1995?
He wasn't involved with Windows. He was involved with Marble.
Is he still a Microsoft employee?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Do you recall personally being worried about Netscape in or about April of 1995?
No.
Do you recall discussing Netscape with Mr. Siegelman in this time period?
I'm sure Russ and I discussed the effect of the internet in general on online service strategies, like the work he was doing that became MSN, but not Netscape in particular, no.
The next sentence of the email says, quote, I agree with most of your problem statement, but I think you underestimate the publisher/ISV threat. Netscape is already opening up API hooks in their viewer, and many ISVs are hopping aboard. Do you know what his reference is to your problem statement?
No?
You understand what he means here when he talks about opening up API hooks and many ISVs hopping aboard?
I don't know what he meant. I can guess if you want.
Do you have any understanding as you sit here what he meant by the language used in this email?
I don't know what he meant. I'd have to ask him what he meant.
I'm asking for your understanding. Do you have one or not?
Understanding of what? Of what he meant?
Yes.
No. Of what those words might mean? I can guess.
I don't want you to guess. I'm asking if you have any present understanding of what these words mean.
I've told you I don't know who he means by you. I don't know what he means by problem statement. So I'm a little unclear about what he means in this paragraph.
Do you have any understanding I'll strike that. By ISV, do you understand him to be referring to independent software vendors?
That acronym refers to independent software vendor.
What does the acronym API refer to?
Application Programming Interface.
Programming in.
Interface.
Do you recall yourself having a concern in or about April 1995 about the possibility that Netscape was going to open up API hooks in the Netscape web browser?
I can't pin any recollection to that particular time period, no.
Did you, at some point, come to the conclusion that the prospect that Netscape might open up API hooks in their browser was a threat to Microsoft?
I think in late '95, Andreessen was talking about how he was going to put us out of business, suggesting that their browser was a platform. And in fact, they did have APIs in their browser.
Do you recall having any concern yourself before late 1995 with respect to the threat posed by Netscape opening up API hooks in their browser?
No.
Do you recall that other folks at Microsoft had such concerns before late 1995?
It's hard to recall other people's concerns. No, I don't recall other people's concerns.
In the last paragraph of his email, Mr. Siegelman refers to the, quote, danger of letting Netscape create a new platform and get ISV merchant/content provider support. Do you have any understanding what he meant by that language?
Well, he was in charge of our online service strategy, and so he thought of the various things going on in the internet as affecting what he was going to do. In particular, online services up until the internet really exploded in popularity. They'd had content that was unique to their online service, and the whole internet phenomena was changing that. And so for Marvel, that was a challenge to the business strategy they'd gone down. So I'm sure he's referring to that general issue.
Did you understand that Mr. Siegelman had a concern in or about April 1995 that the opening up of API hooks in Netscape's browser constituted a threat to the Windows operating system?
Well, certainly he wasn't involved in the Windows operating system, and none of this is about the Windows operating system. So to try to read that into here is certainly incorrect.
Move to strike as non-responsive and repeat the question, please.
Did you understand Mr. Siegelman had a concern in or about April 1995 that the opening up of API hooks in Netscape's browser constituted a threat to the Windows operating system?
I'll give the same answer.
In the next sentence, Mr. Siegelman says, quote, "I don't think that the way to fight back is simply with a better web browser either," close quote. Do you recall having any discussion with Mr. Siegelman on what the best way to fight back was?
I had certainly had discussions with him about our online strategy, which subsequently were not successful. And certainly it's clear that for the online strategy, he needed to do quite a bit, and including content relationships, not just browsing functionality.
Did you have any discussion with Mr. Siegelman as to what the best way was for Microsoft to fight back with respect to any threat posed by Netscape to Windows as a platform?
Mr. Siegelman wasn't involved with Windows, so I don't understand why you keep asking me about.
Well, you can say yes or no, sir. I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, my discussions with Russ were about his responsibilities, which were online service activities.
I'd like to mark as Exhibit 342 series of emails, the first one being from Nathan Myhrvold to Mr. Gates, dated April 24, 1995. Before you take a look at that document that's in front of you now, which is Exhibit 342, Mr. Gates, do you recall that there was a general discussion in Microsoft at the top executive level in or about April 1995 with respect to the threat to Microsoft posed by Netscape?
No.
What position did Mr. Myhrvold hold with Microsoft in April of 1995?
He was Russ Siegelman's boss, so he wasn't involved in the Windows business. He was involved in our online service activities.
Was he one of your top executives?
He was an executive. I'm not sure what you mean by top executive. He didn't manage any of the large products that we offer.
Was he sort of Microsoft's resident strategic thinker?
No,
No. Did you value his advice?
not over the advice of people who are more directly involved in their businesses.
Do you recall consulting Mr. Myhrvold's advice in or about April 1995 as to how Microsoft should respond to Netscape?
I'm sure since Nathan was in charge of online services at that time, there was some discussion or email about the effect of the internet growth on the Marvel and Blackbird strategies, but not in a general sense.
Okay. If you would you take a look at Exhibit 342 and in particular the email on the second page, which is from Mr. Myhrvold to yourself and others regarding internet strategy, dated April 18, 1995.
There's a lot of different emails here.
Yeah, the one I referred you to is the one on the second page, sir. It's at the bottom of that page. And it's from Mr. Myhrvold to yourself and others, dated April 18th, 1995.
But doesn't the same email extend for about 9 pages or 10 pages? Isn't that all one email?
That's the one I'm going to ask you about.
So it's on all those pages, right?
Right. And the questions I have to help you focus are going to be with respect to the first couple pages of the email.
Okay.
The first paragraph reads, quote, "There has been a flurry of email about Netscape and our general internet development strategy. This email is my contribution to this topic," period, close quote. Does this refresh your recollection that there was a general discussion at the upper levels of Microsoft in about April 1995 with respect to Netscape and how to respond competitively to Netscape?
I think that's a mischaracterization. It appears there was some mail about the effect of Netscape and their activities on our online service strategy.
What do you understand by Mr. Meervold's reference here to general internet development strategy?
Well, this memo is about our strategy with the Blackbird front end and how it should relate to internet protocols. And it's a very long 9-page thing about Blackbird and his various opinions about Blackbird. The interesting thing is Blackbird basically was canceled.
Is it your testimony that, in your understanding, this memorandum is limited to a discussion about Blackbird?
Object to the question because you know the witness hasn't read it.
Well, he has read it. It took time and he read it.
Well,
No, I didn't read.
You said you would direct him to 2 pages. He read 2 pages. He can read 9 pages and then tell you what the 9 pages are about, if you'd like.
Take as much time as you need to review the memorandum and answer my question.
Have the question right back.
Is your testimony and your understanding this memorandum is limited to a discussion about Blackbird?
Yeah, you keep using the word memorandum to refer to electronic mail. I don't think of as electronic mail as memorandum. So this email, which I haven't read, the part I've glanced at, all the action items, all the things he's saying we should do, all relate strictly to Blackbird and the online services activities.
Did any of the recipients of this email have responsibilities for Windows?
Well, let's see. He copies Russ, who works for him on online service. He copies Craig, who works on interactive TV, not Windows. He copies Dan Rosen, who works with him on online service. Pat Farrell, who works on online service. Peter Newport, who works on online service. And then he copies Paul, who has another part of the business that includes Windows, and he copies me. So Paul and myself have broad responsibilities, but otherwise all the other people are online service people.
Were you and Paul Moritz, the 2 senior executives with responsibilities for Windows in April '95?
I'm not sure how you characterize my role. I'm the CEO of the company, so all the products of the company. I'm not sure you'd say you'd use the description you used.
Windows is a very important product to Microsoft, is it not?
That's right.
Is it fair to say you devote a fair amount of your time to Windows and strategies for marketing Windows and making sure it's a successful product?
I spend some of my time on that.
And was that one of Mr. Moritz's principal responsibilities in April of 1995?
It was one of his, yes.
In the third paragraph of his email, Mr. Myhrvold states, quote, "The big issue to be concerned about is the same issue that we have faced in the past, proprietary standards coming from competing software companies. Netscape is certainly one of the many companies who will try to promote their proprietary extensions and entirely new protocols on the world." Do you have any understanding as to what he was referring to by his reference to issues that Microsoft had faced in the past?
No.
Do you know if he's referring to Lotus Notes there?
I'm sorry, to what?
Lotus Notes?
I'm quite certain that's not what he's referring to.
Do you have any present understanding as to what he meant?
I'm not sure.
The next page, in the first full paragraph, Mr. Myhrvold states, quote, "The world of the Internet is rapidly becoming Windows-centric because Windows will be the most popular client operating system by a wide margin." Did you understand he was referring here to market share enjoyed by Windows?
I've said I don't remember the memo specifically, so it's hard for me to say that I remember something he was referring to.
You have no present understanding of what he meant by this language, is that correct?
That's a different question.
Yeah, it's a different.
Do you have
Which
any-
question should I answer?
Do you have any present understanding of what, strike the question. Is it your present understanding that by the reference here to Windows being the most popular client operating system by a wide margin, Mr. Myhrvold was referring to the market share enjoyed by Windows in or about April 1995?
He may have been.
Several paragraphs further on in his email, Mr. Myhrvold states, "As platform-specific work is done on the Internet, we want it to be done on our platform. As proprietary technology and protocols are used, we want them to be ours in as many broad mainstream areas as is reasonably possible." Is it your understanding that his use of the word platform here is a reference to Windows?
No.
What's your understanding?
I think he's talking about all our platform activities
Which would be what?
that include Blackbird. That's the primary subject of the memo, as we discussed.
Did you consider Blackbird a platform at this point in time?
Yes. What else? What else is it?
Did you have a concern in April of 1995 that Netscape was somehow threatening Blackbird Microsoft product?
There was a concern that our whole online service strategy, including the Blackbird part of it, may have been something we should change because of all the activity on the internet in general, including the things Netscape was doing.
Did you have a concern that what Netscape was doing was threatening Blackbird as a platform?
The whole phenomena of people doing websites using HTML was changing the framework that had existed for online service people. And so the Marble and Blackbird strategy, you really had to call into question whether changes should be made. And so Netscape was part of a phenomena that was making us rethink, did Blackbird make sense? And eventually, due to size and speed and delays and various changes in the market, we actually canceled Blackbird.
Move to strike the answer as non-responsive. Can you read the question back, please?
have a concern that what Netscape was doing was threatening Blackbird as a platform?
The answer was directly responsive to the question. You can move to strike all the answers, we'll have a short transcript.
Yeah, if there's some part of my answer that you don't understand, I'll be glad to elucidate it, but it's 100% responsive to the question.
Isn't it a fact, Mr. Gates, that Blackbird never did become a platform at all?
I told you we canceled Blackbird, but Blackbird, the whole idea of Blackbird is to be a platform for people to write enhanced content on. That's the reason we invested so much money in building Blackbird. And as it says in this memo, there were people who were enthusiastic about what we've done in Blackbird,